Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio, where we celebrate every single day so many amazing people who are working in the trenches to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. We have a very special show today. Before we get to our guests that we'll have for the whole show, I want to share something with you. My wife's cousin, Angela Gumbus, posted this the other day, and it's from Shino Alex. That's who posted it. It's called The Message of the Day. And here's what it said. Keep believing even when you don't see results right away. Trust the things that are coming together for you. New paths and connections are being made. Everything is moving in your favor. Be patient. It's all happening. You know, being patient is hard, man. It's hard for people. But I do believe that if you have confidence in what you're focused on, you have goals, in your mind, that if you keep believing, that even though you don't see results right away, good things are going to happen. And, there's a theme in this show is that I had the opportunity to visit with a lot of really amazing people who none of them had it handed to them on a silver platter. They all had to work hard in the trenches to make it work. And it's exciting to kind of hear their stories. One of the great things about a long form show like this is, which is kind of rare on radio these days, is you get the chance to really understand who these people are, what makes them tick, what's behind the person, the public persona that you may know. Our next guest is someone I think fits that description wonderfully. Jourdan Derouen is a guy that if you're on Facebook, you probably have seen his podcast. You probably know the work that he and John Carter have done through Carter's Champions. And he's somebody that I have really exchanged notes with for several years now. But I've never had him on the show. We've talked about having him here, and we just never kind of pulled it together. But finally, we were able to get him scheduled, and I'm thrilled to have Jourdan Derouen join me today. Jourdan, how you doing, my friend?
Great, Ricky.
So you're sitting
awesome.
You're sitting in your studio.
Yeah.
Kind of taking shape over the years. We'll get into your podcast and what you do there and all of that. But hey, man, I wanted to start with this to begin with. I talk about on this show all the time how one of the things that makes Mississippi, and especially coastal Mississippi, so resilient is that we have people who get what it means to give back to the community, that there are so many volunteers, there's so many different stripes out there that are working in the trenches to make this a better place, to help people who maybe can't help themselves. One of the reasons this is such a great place is because we have so many people who are willing to do that. And I love, one of you, if you have a clarion call that I noticed, I think that John has this, and others mentioned John specifically because you and he work closely in the community together. But if you love living here, you got to get involved in the community. Where did that drive come from?
Well, I think for me, I'm from Latimer, Mississippi, St. Martin. My family all from here. I was born with cerebral palsy, but it's mild. I'm a Shriner's kid. And I think, at a young age, I was a kid wearing braces and, figuring out life. Got really big into computers very young, big into video games. I guess for me, what it really started was I kind of stopped feeling sorry for myself, and you got to kind of get to that level and just be able to walk with a limp, be able to walk out and just get comfortable with who you are. And then when I started getting comfortable in myself, I started seeing people, and then I was like, wait, there's people that battle every day that I battle with my head, my depression, my mental health. And this is my community. I really, I live it like that. I feel like the coast is mine. I get up. I love local businesses. I think people take for granted, a lot of people down here take for granted what we have. Our coastal beaches, our seafood. I mean, it's just everything. And the people. I've been to not tons of places, haven't traveled. I'm normally, my parents got a place in Gatlinburg in the 80s, kind of spent my time up in Gatlinburg. But I've always, whether I went to Florida or Georgia, there's something about the coast and the way people, it's hospitality. And I'm bit by it. I love it. I love everything about this coast.
But, it's interesting. That doesn't completely describe your why you give back in the way you do. You're just so focused on giving back to the community. Where did that come from? I mean, where is that just something that's in you, or you just said, hey man, I'm going to do my part. I see other people that are doing their part. I'm going to do my part. Where did that come from?
My parents. I mean, my dad's Scott Derouen. My mom's a Susie Levenway. I got two parents with big hearts. My dad is class of 81 at St. Martin. Everybody knows him down here as having a large heart. I have an uncle, Tommy Soche, that's dissimilar. So I have these, my influence is my parents and my family. So I watched them give back, but I had to find, my mom had cancer when I was like 12. And so that's when I really always wanted to help the community, but it was John Carter that got me into like the money give back. He called me one day and said, let's do this. There's going to be one day, once a year, me and John get out and raise money. John's more into the, at the time, I was all marketing driven, and John's more of a promotional guy. Whether it's Coliseum, John, John's on a couple boards, and we kind of just work together. But I mean, there was times I just helped people. I mean, my grandfather, Fabian, when for Christmas, me and my brothers would get bicycles every year from Santa. And my grandfather would make me and my brother give the bikes to other kids. And my grandma and my grandfather, both Cedar Grove, shout out Cedar Grove, Lemoyne. We had a community center called Cedar Grove Community Center. And they never took care of the nets, basketball nets. And my grandfather, my grandmother, they're originally from Biloxi. But in St. Martin, they built the basketball court in the backyard. So I grew up with my grandparents feeding the neighborhood. I mean, a lot of it has to do with, I have one of them families, when you say you're having a cookout, at the time there was 100 people there. And it was my grandma, Mark Landry's sisters over there in Biloxi. My grandma worked at a local seafood factory, and she peeled shrimp. So she made the best out of life. And I always try to tell people all the time, it's like, she was that grandma that would get off of work at her house, and she would work so hard, she'd smell the shrimp, and then she would get on her little boom box, grab her 120 cigarettes, and listen to Celine Dion and Fat Dominoes and Otis Redding. And then she would get ready and she would cook. She never measured anything. And it wouldn't feed her up, it's definitely family driven.
Well, I see, isn't that interesting, just exploring a little deeper, you in that story, these noticeable names that you're connected to, the heritage of your family. But I find that there's this deep generational, for people who are giving back to the community in the way that you work to do, there's a deep generational leading by example that's somehow part of your DNA, and it just captures you. And then, as you pointed out, when you personally face challenges in your life, it makes you actually more empathetic for other people's challenges, and it helps you understand that, you can have all the United Ways and the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and the food pantries, and those are all fantastic, and we need all of them and more. But there's always going to be gaps between those organizations, and there's going to be volunteers that come to the forefront to fill that gap. And I look at the work that you and John have done together, for example, over all these years, and the amount of money that you've raised for, I guess it's been mostly breast cancer, but it's been other things as well along the way. It's amazing how many people have stayed committed to helping you guys with that over all these years.
I think it's we're a family. That's one thing is it's about a team, and from Cam Roberts, Randy Richardson, there's a team of people. It's when we started this, me and John did create Carter's Champions, but we did it with friends. And when you have that relationship, I mean, most of our stuff is we settle over a beer. If we get together, you put the kids down, family time, and then we make time over family time. But the family's involved too. So it's not just me and John. It's a whole team of people, whether it's Hugh Snowden, Andrew Lowens, there's Gina and John Lacoste, Cam's mom, Miss Karen. We're all like a family. We just text like, okay, well, yesterday Miss Karen got us another $1,000, and it's just, we're really not like very like, I mean, we are organized, but we really do cherish our friendships. And I think that's why they stick around.
That's one of the things I learned after Hurricane Katrina. I learned a lot. In fact, I sat down and started to capture all these lessons, and had the thought that maybe one day I would write a book about it. But I didn't write the book, but I have the lessons, and the lessons are really powerful. And one of the lessons, in fact, we're getting to the end of the segment. When we come back on the other side, I want to share the lesson with you and get your response to it, because I think it's an important statement about how we move too fast in our world, and we don't look around to see people that are contributing. They're not even looking for any kind of recognition. They're just in the trenches doing their thing. It's an important thing, and I think it's one of the things that makes being in a community like ours so darn special. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Jourdan Derouen. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with Jourdan Derouen, who is someone I've enjoyed getting to know over the years. Never been on the show before, and I'm thrilled to have him today. He likes to refer to himself as a producer for, but he's actually the owner of Oliver Scott Insurance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that before we get off the conversation. But one of the things that's drawn me to him, not only the podcast that he has, but what you see is this sort of underlying sense of giving back to the community. And Jourdan, what I was going to mention to you is in this book of lessons that I wrote after Katrina, what I do is I have this a couple of pages of explanation about an observation that I made, and then I state what I call the Katrina lesson. And let me read the lesson to you because I found it, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. I'll share with you what I came to appreciate about it. But here's what I wrote. Never, ever judge a book by its cover. Never ever assume or conclude you understand the essence of any one person. Work harder to understand who people really are in job interviews, community work, day-to-day company activities, but not focusing more on getting beneath the facade of others. You miss learning wonderful things about the people around you. And you miss a better understanding of who you can depend on when the going gets tough and the chips are down. This statement is true. You'll see the best and the worst of people during tough times. Expect it. Don't just trust your gut, though, when it comes to people. And here was my observation. That type A personalities tend to bring a lot of attention to themselves, and that's okay. I mean, that's who they are. Type B personalities don't bring a lot of attention to themselves. So in this busy world that we're going through, we tend not to focus enough on the type B, the people who are kind of quietly getting things done, and the type A personalities are the ones who you end up getting a lot of your attention. Now, when Katrina hit and everything, homes were wiped away and businesses were wiped away, and we were challenged in ways none of us could have ever imagined. Some of the type A personalities did step up. They stepped up in ways you would that were incredibly impressive. Others, they didn't, and they were just overcome for whatever reason. But over here to the other side, these type B personalities, you had all these people that you never even knew who they were that suddenly were coming to the forefront doing amazing things. And what I came to understand about that is that when this busyness of our lives, this applies today, that we're moving too fast through our lives, that we don't stop long enough to really appreciate the essence of those around us. And there's so much, if you take the time to do that, the joy you get in connecting to people who are really making a difference in the community, it's a wonderful payback that you get. And, in that way, this show has done that for me. It's given me the chance to really understand in almost 1,200 conversations that we've had in the nearly 5 years I've done this show. I feel the same way about having this conversation with you today. But one of the things, I think you and I probably share that with each other, that we don't want to just run through life and miss the essence of those around us. You're taking the time to really try to understand that, aren't you?
Well, yeah, a lot of energy drinks, a lot of long nights. I think, last night I was working on graphics till 2-3 in the morning. I think I just, it's if you're going to do this, and you're right, but I'm both a little bit. I'm type A and type B at times, especially now that I'm getting older in this stuff. I tell John, now I'm a puppet. I'm okay with being a puppet as long as their sponsor money goes to the hospital. I mean, right now we're hitting over 90,000. So like my mind's triggering, and if that's fine. But I think it's just you gotta get up in the day, and you got to have a reason why, and the thing is, like you said, I mean, you got to help these people. This community, I mean, it's important to me. We've raised over $400,000 for Memorial. I met people, it makes me I'm probably going to cry on the show, but I met people that I've paid for their teeth, and people that are struggling. And, that's something that fuels me. So, when I see somebody get help, and we've been working for it, that's all I need. When I first started, I probably would say I was a little more selfish at first. But as I got older and met the survivors and met the people that I helped, because not only do I do Carter's Champions, I'm behind the Sands Project with Butler, and I'm proud of that too. Me and Butler, we met at Maison de Lou, and he wanted me to do his BW artisan marketing for him. And then he goes, let me show you this project. And he brought me to the Sands, and it was covered. It was dirty. And Butler's like, I just have a dream to be like Santa Rosa Beach. And if I can build this, I don't have to worry about marketing. Butler Homes will be there. And I know you interviewed Butler, but it took me to go, you know what, Butler, let's hold off on that neighborhood. I'm fighting for the Sands. And we won. It took us a few years. What I got out of it? A golf cart for my parents. So that's what I got out of it. I think I just got to know why you're doing it. I have a lot of people that reach out to me about helping them in their new organizations, for profit organizations. And it's an instant no for me. If, I've had a guy, they're no longer in business, but they had a run in Biloxi. And I remember getting Marty, you and Marty are close friends, Marty Wilson. And me and Marty went, I'm not going to name the guy's name. He's no longer in business, but me and Marty go to this guy's bar, and he wanted us to help with a zombie run. And we're like, okay, we will. Me and Marty thinking we're just giving money, because Marty Wilson's like, I am too. Like we're helping the community. Well, he goes, I said, advertising for $90 for radio ads? I said, wow, that's cheap. He goes, and the guy looked at me and goes, well, you're not going to make any profit off of this. We're keeping it. And I was like, all right, Marty. Marty goes, let's get out of here. So I will help in the community on stuff, but it's got to be towards my community.
Yeah.
I'm a servant to this coast. That's kind of how I would say it.
You can really tell that. You've been on kind of an entrepreneur along the way too. Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey.
So, and I still own it to this day, but I played video games as a teenager, and I was big into video games. When I was 19, I decided to open a Janie King commercial cleaning franchise, which I still own to this day. It's a smaller scale now. But I don't like authority. So I wanted to be able to play video games and clean toilets. And at the time I was still going to full sell for marketing. So I just like pushing my brain. Well, so I did Janie King. I'm still 18 years, still in the business. And then for me, it's just, I like that feeling of the hustle. I like taking the risk. By then I'm from probably, I would say 22 or 23, I started playing competitive gaming on Twitch. I got swatted by the cops on Twitch. And a lot of people don't know about that in Gaucher, but I was a Call of Duty Twitch streamer, and I got swatted at my house. I gave up Twitch, which I built a relationship online, being as an online streamer. I used to stream shirtless, to be honest with you, Ricky. Had fun with it, though. It was nothing too crazy, and I wasn't rude to people, but I just always had a fun stream. Well, after I shut that down, about 25, I opened a mattress store with my brother, Bronson. He was on the Pogie boat, and he wanted to get into a brick and mortar business. He wanted to run the more front end of it, and we didn't really work together. I learned that about working with brothers. We didn't really work after a couple years. I took it over, ran it till the pandemic. Prices went up, and I just couldn't afford to have a local business, with retail. And then I found insurance. I found insurance. It's like everybody's got to have it, and I am good at marketing. So why not just market my insurance company? I'll make good money. I'm gaining with clients, But my whole goal, Ricky, is to make money with Oliver Scott Insurance, open my own Carter's Champions nonprofit next door, and then I'm going to flood the money from my insurance into Carter's Champions. I'm not really big on money. And, I talk to John about it all the time. Butler always gets on me about this. I have a Ford Lightning. It's my dream truck. I have my buddy's dad, Doug Borries, Dynamic Outdoors. I have his Hummer H2, which he was like a dad to me. I have everything I need. I have a scooter. I have a beautiful son, a beautiful girl. I mean, that's all I really need in life.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's a great story behind the name of your insurance company, Oliver Scott. Tell me about that.
I mean, my son Oliver has a speech impediment, or not so bad anymore, but hooked on phonics. I was in hooked on phonics, and I was telling Emily, I wanted to, if we're going to create the insurance company, why not put it and make him, he's in Bayview, give him confidence, put him on a billboard, put him on a commercial. Because he does like right now in school for 2 weeks, and Oliver's taking boost right now at the school. So Oliver's son pushes himself. I just want him to have confidence. I mean, that's all I'd ever want. Let's go back to the question with Carter's Champions. I mean, I had this one time where I was like, do I want to leave my kid money, or do I want my kid to say, my dad stood up for this, my dad fought for this? And I'm more into the fighting side. I like standing up for that. But yeah, Oliver Scott is me and Emily dated for 2 weeks. We were both 30. She was teaching at a college in Hattiesburg. I was living down here owning 2 businesses.
Hey, let's do this. We'll pick it up right there on the other side. We'll continue our conversation with Jourdan Derouen on the other side after this break. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. Hope you're having a great day. Listen, Gaston Hughes, the former judge here in Coastal Mississippi, is a good friend of ours. We think the world of Gaston. And his son, Henderson, most of you may know, Henderson Hughes works for Good Morning America up in New York. And my son, Justin, works for Price Waterhouse in New York. And his girlfriend, Lauren, is also a producer, and she was trying to figure out, she has a short film she's working on. They need some live fish to be sort of part of this, one of their scenes. And she was trying to figure out, okay, how do I get live fish in New York City? Well, I said, you know what? I bet Henderson knows how to get live fish in New York City. So I introduced Lauren to Henderson, and I'm looking at this great texting back and forth between Lauren and Henderson. But it's great to be able to connect. Henderson used to play soccer with my son Jordan, and he was a real good soccer player. But we're very, very proud of Henderson as he continues his career up in New York City. And I'm thrilled that my kids and him are able to connect. That's so awesome. So anyway, let's get back to Jourdan Derouen. You know him. He's got Oliver Scott Insurance, but he's also got he worked with John Carter on Carter's Champions. They've done so much good with that. And then, of course, he is involved in, he has a podcast, and we'll be talking about that as well as we go forward. But when when we went to break, he was talking a little bit more about his son. So why don't you pick it up from where you left off, Jourdan?
So, yeah, let's just go back. Me and Emily were both 30, had my couple businesses down here on the coast. Emily she's originally from here. Her mom was Miss Shekels, school teacher at St. Martin. I knew we just, one of the situations when you get in your 30s, the dating scene, how you want to date changes. You want to, at 30, you want to have a conversation with an intelligent person, be honest. Like you want to really have a conversation. And yeah, me and Emily, I went up there, visit her in Hattiesburg. We dated for 2 weeks. And then I got the news that I'm about to be a dad. And 3 months later, we bought a house right here on the island in Gulfport. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's every day is a new chapter. I'm falling more in love with her, but we went fast. And we knew then, we both said this to each other, like, we don't have to be with each other. We want to be with each other. And we want to do what's best for our son. I love being a dad. I got a minivan, Ricky. Like, it's awesome. It's a Toyota Sienna.
Yeah, listen, we had multiple ones when we were younger, and we did it all. But yeah, I tell you what, man, being a dad for me, I had tremendous success in my career as a CEO for the last 16 years of my career, and thank God it enabled me to retire young. But I'm gonna tell you, man. For people,
are you retired?
Say it again.
Are you retired, Ricky?
Oh yes. Listen, this is a labor of love I'm doing here. But when I retired in 2016, people were surprised. I joked that I was cutting my money tree down, but the reality was, the moment I wasn't passionate about what I was doing anymore, the moment I wasn't having fun anymore, I was going to retire if I could do it financially. So I did. And I never looked back. People were surprised by that. But see, all the way through my career, I never lost sight of what was most important to me. It was being a dad, being a husband, being able to provide for my family. And I retired and never looked back. To have the opportunity to do this show 4 years after retirement, the one thing I missed about being a publisher was connecting back to the community in the way that I'm able to do in this show. So in that way, I'm honored to be here. I'm humbled to be here. And it's a gift. It's a gift to me to give me this opportunity in retirement to be able to connect with people like you. I just think, what better scenario to have in retirement?
I think you're doing a great job. I mean, you are with a network. I mean, you're on SuperTalk. I was going to share a little bit about that too. Is my stepdad, Scott Levenway, the lobbyist.
Yeah, I know Scott. I think the world of Scott.
He is. So I was going to say, it's Oliver Scott Insurance. Scott's a partner with me in insurance. His name's Richard Scott. So, before I got set up with this interview, Scott was because I never did Skype. Scott was Skyping me from his office. Now he's a co-host of my podcast. He's a dear friend of mine. I learn a lot about politics through Scott. We have a place in Jackson. But I have, I say this all the time, is I have two Scotts as dads. But Scott Levenway has been an inspiration behind majority. Because if I tell Scott, I want to do a podcast, he built this wall.
Yeah.
If it's and the thing is about Scott is I could tell him my ideas, and he knows how big my heart is. He'll be here in suspenders, cutting, building, whatever. I mean, I have to give him credit too, because I have, Scott, and he's a very intelligent man, and I'm very blessed to have him as a grandfather, as a friend. If you're going to ask me to go hang out with, go out on the weekends with my buddies, I'm going to hang out with Scott. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to learn about the last 45 years of the state of Mississippi and his love for it.
Yeah, I mean, his work in the Mississippi legislature, I mean, he's been present during some of the most significant moments in Mississippi history.
It's cool, man. It is really, I have to tell the people all the time, is like, it's kind of like a cheat code. He keeps me grounded. I made him just do me one promise, son. I said, sorry, he goes, he doesn't want me to run for. Yeah. And I made a promise to my parents. He said, because, especially with my show, it reaches a good amount of people. And he said, you're doing your work just on a microphone. Yeah. And I'm still staying to that.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? There's a lot to be said for that. I mean, I would say, if that's, of course, I'm never going to be in politics because I would just, it would be, I'm too independent and I'm going to say what I think. But I try to do my work through this show. I try to provide a service to the community by helping people understand what it takes to make a community tick. It takes lots of people like you and John and so many others. Again, 1,200 conversations we've had over the past 5 years. And there's so much to learn in those conversations, and it's a real honor to be here to be able to do this. So
it kind of reminds me of is cans and ropes. Me and my brother used to have the soup cans and the rope. Yeah, underground radio. This to me, it's what we're doing is underground. This is an underground. Open platform. I'm all over Spotify, everywhere, but I love that anybody can do this, and that's also fascinating. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I think look if you were to describe to someone your podcast, what's your elevator story about your podcast? It's just I don't watch football and stuff. I don't watch sports. I think it's more or less me race sitting because we do a live show here on a $80 futon that I purchased, and I just like hearing stories. there talking about, permit issues with Gulfport. This has been a topic, but my guests are allowed to do that. Okay, this is freedom of speech, or it's, for instance, Carrie Jo with her Jacket Drive in St. Martin. Tonight I got two country singers on, UFC fighters, anything that I'm all over the board with my guests. I do tend to have some political stuff. It's not all the time, but if Ivan and Jared, they did their little debate about the shipping container crates for Biloxi. They both text me and go, "Hey, we want to come on your show and we want to kind of debate it out." And I mean, if you watch that show, you see me just more. I got my little bourbon, and people are having conversations, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I don't really have a serious direction. I don't do keynotes. If I can relate to you, I will.
Yeah.
I love it. I love having a microphone. And I love hearing stories. I love crying with my guests. I had this guy named Chris. He owns a dirt company right here in St. Martin. He's a Marine Corps vet, fought in war, lost a few buddies. He came on my podcast because he was doing a dirt job across the street from me, and I grew up with Chris. And him and his Alex, shout out to Alex, but they have a one income family business, and he was owed over $100,000. Didn't get a lot of jobs, and he's probably sitting on $800,000 worth of equipment. And I said, just come on the show and let's talk about it. And he came on, and he did the show, and he got 2 days later, he got $50,000 owed to him, and he got 7 jobs. I think for me, and he goes, "What do you want?" I said, "Take me to Twin Peaks. Give me some wings." And like I said, I don't go after sponsors. I've turned down a lot of sponsors. It's overwhelming. My DMs from people, let's go back to like the Ivan situation. People messaging me saying they had, and this is every city's got this. It's not just one city, but to have people's feedback of saying thank you for bringing something to light, whether good or bad. Nobody is perfect, and we all have disagreements, and that's one thing that I don't really, I'm not into the whole cancer culture. I think if you're voting left, great, I'll love you. If you're voting right, great, I love you. If you vote in the middle, I love you too. But if you don't have your voter's card, I don't want to hear about your politics.
Well, I love that part, that don't complain if you don't vote. And I'm with you, man. But some friends of mine say, "Well, he's a Democrat. How do you?" I said, "He's one of my best friends. What are you talking about?" I mean, it doesn't matter to me what your political persuasion is. You have your reason for doing that. That's not gonna shield at all my love for you at the end of the day. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Jourdan Derouen. We'll see you after this. Hey, welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. And I love doing this show because they have the opportunity to get to know the essence of people like Jourdan Derouen, and somebody I've been really looking forward to having on the show. He's got a podcast. He has a insurance business here in coastal Mississippi. He works with John Carter. John sells real estate on the coast and is part of the Carter family here. And Carter's Champions, and they've done great work, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars over several years, and it's good to see people like Jourdan who are willing to work in the trenches to make this a better place to live. Then look, one of the great things about the newspaper business, Jourdan, was that, and I believe that newspapers still do, but they're not nearly as strong because of the digital tsunami that's kind of overtaken them. But I think that they had a role in society to help keep democracy viable. And it was about getting the information out there so that people could then decide how they wanted to vote on whatever the issue might be. And that's what democracy is all about. It's interesting that you talk about your show the way you did before we went to break, because in a way, you see your show as being sort of part of the democratic process. You're going to have interesting conversations along the way. You're going to get involved in some of the political issues that might overcome a city or a county at any given time, or a person, but it's about getting both sides out there and then letting people decide for themselves. It's great, and let it happen authentically. Let it. Don't force it. Don't have an agenda going into it. Just have the conversation and let people learn from the conversations. Good things will happen when you do that, and that's what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's you nailed it. Actually, I think that was going back to people, growing up, we all had different opinions. It's just now everything's so sensitive. And when people tell me, like, I have friends that are far left. I have friends that are far right. But I have these friends that we'll sit together and let them have open conversation. And I'm not going to be mad at them. I'll never want to say, hey, Ricky, just because you believe in this, I don't want to be your friend. I don't believe in that. I think that's something that I will always do with my show. Also, too, I always tell people my show's not made for kids. Okay. My show does have a little language in it. I'm trying not to do language on here because out of respect for you and being Jordan's dad. But I do like talking more about some politics because I get really upset when I find out friends they don't vote.
Yeah.
But they'll have a 2-hour discussion about politics, and you're like, well, you want to go vote with me because we live in the same precinct? And they don't notice that I'm at the precinct seeing who's coming in. I'm just curious. What is how many people actually vote? That's kind of one of the very scary things down here on the coast is like people will lose elections by like 40 votes.
No, I'm telling you, Michael Watson and I talk about it all the time, and voter engagement is a major problem. It's something we really
Are y'all friends?
Excuse me?
Michael Watson, y'all friends?
Yes.
I picked him up. His first campaign he ever did, he was door knocking in Latimer, and I had a Jeep Rubicon, and he was sweating. And this is right when he would just become an attorney. And I picked him up in my Jeep, and he'll remember this because he wrote me a letter. I can't find the letter, but him and his wife are going door to door, and I said, hey, what's going on? And he was sweating. I mean, he was drenched. And I said, get in my truck, give me a sign. And I got him a water, and then I introduced him a couple of my neighbors, and that was the first time that I was ever really impacted by a politician.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, when I was publisher of the Sun Herald, he ran for office for the first time, and it was clear that he was going to be very passionate. And of course, comes on, does what he's done and becomes Secretary of State, and he has obviously bigger aspirations even beyond that. But he's, one of the interesting things about Michael is that he's always been willing to work in the trenches, and he's tried to get, I think he's gotten now to all 82 counties, visiting the people that he's responsible for in his work, and he's not afraid to get involved in some tough issues that might be controversial. He stands by his principles, whether you agree with him or not. But yeah, he's a pretty regular guest of the show, and someone I really enjoy spending time with.
Think we're gonna have a Governor Watson?
It could be someday.
Okay.
Could be. Hey, you know what's interesting? Frank Bordeaux and I, who used to be chairman of the Republican Party, and I have had many conversations about this. But the bench on the Republican side is very strong, very, very strong. And so you've got a lot of. It's going to be hard in a Republican primary at the state office level because they're going to be a lot of competition, and you're going to see some really good people going after each other. Unfortunately, so it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out as we get into the next cycle of statewide elections.
The ones that knock the doors are the ones that have a better chance at winning.
Getting in the trenches. Yeah, getting in the trenches, talking to people. It's hard to do that on the statewide level, but if you have a track record of having done it prior to getting in that position, it can make a really, really big difference. But listen, we're out of time for today. But Jordan, we'll have you back. I really enjoy visiting with you, my friend.
Are you going to come over and get on the show?
Oh, I'd love to. I'll come over and visit with you sometime for sure.
I think it'd be great. I think it really would be good, and I think you'd get a different audience too, and we get more of these people that vote. I think that's something that we have to change.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that. Listen, take care, my friend. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.